anything, me and Andrew have decided to bring back our channel. Especially with today's current events of late. As you guys know the deal. We pick a topic each, and then we come on here, we talk about it, we give you all of the research and all the facts, and then state our opinions on the matter. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so, I know right now the biggest topic is like the Epstein files, but we're going to get into that, just not today. I decided to talk about the big beautiful bill because I am going to be a person that it affects, and a lot of people don't really know what's inside of a bill because they don't want to read about it. The only people that read about it are people who care, or people that wrote it. So if you don't like to read, or you don't like using Google, let me be your Google guide. Alright, so let's talk about at least who is not only in charge of the big beautiful bill, which is our president, and we're going to talk about what's in it and the people that it affects. Yet again, it has been a minute since I've recorded a video, so bear with me. So here's what we know. It is represented by Jody Arrington, which is this guy right here. We have him to thank for those who are going to be affected by this bill that has gotten passed. The committees are House and Budget. Committee meetings took place on July 1st between the hours of 1:30 p.m. and June 21st, 1 o'clock a.m. Reports were H represented between 119 and 106 Book 1 and Book 2, 119 and 106. The latest action that took place was on July 4th, and that's when it became public law. The roll call votes had 30. So if you don't know what a roll call vote is, I'm going to tell you right now. A roll call vote is a formal way of voting where each member's vote is individually recorded and made public. In legislative bodies, this method is used to create a record of how each member votes on a specific motion or bill. During a roll call vote, the names of the members are called out, and each member must state their vote, saying yay, nay, or abstain. Alright, so now that we're done with the summary of this bill, it's not big or beautiful. It's actually quite terrible, especially if you have medical needs, like me, or are a low-income American. But we'll get into that here in a second. So, let's see. What's inside the bill is the extension of 2017 the Trump tax cuts. So it will be steep cuts to Medicaid, Social Security taxes, increasing state and local tax deduction, which SALT is what is short for that. It's going to cut food benefits. So if you have food stamps, EBT, SNAP, it's also going to cut funding for elementary school kids, middle school kids, high school kids. Anyone that's getting a free lunch will no longer get free breakfast and lunch. They will not have to pay for it. And it's also going to boost to defense and border spending. So basically all the money that is being taken out of everything I just listed is going to go towards border patrol. Which I get it, but at the same time, nobody is illegal on stolen land, so what are we doing? Alright, so we're going to turn the page now. Actually, no we're not. No we're not. I'm going to tell you who stands to gain. So these are the people that are going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? They're going to be okay. They're not going to struggle. The people I'm about to list, they're not going to struggle. So, you've got corporate America, manufacturers, small businesses and partnerships, high-income Americans, and workers who receive tips and overtime. So those are going to be the people that do well with this big, beautiful bill. And the people who will struggle, low-income Americans, hospitals, which, you know, those are the places where you go to find out what's wrong with you, get medicines for what is wrong with you, the people who cure our diseases, the people who do our surgeries, yeah, and clean energy and EVs. Now that we're done with the notes, we're going to get on my trusty dusty laptop here, and I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Now, if you want to see where I'm coming from with the information, everything will be down in the description box below, and it'll take you to the websites that I got the same information on, and any questions that you have, that should be able to answer them for you. Alright, so the Senate Republicans have passed legislation to extend many provisions of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which is also known as TCJA, alongside dozens of new provisions following broadly similar legislation and passed by House Republicans. Any comprehensive tax legislation is going to have its wrinkles, and the One Big Beautiful Bill is no different. We have previously published estimates of the budgetary, economic, and distributional effects, words are hard, of the House legislation and Senate legislation. And this post will dive into the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Senate package, particularly in contrast to the House bill. And if anyone wants to know, this is the Tax Foundation website, so that'll also be linked down below. Alright, so this is what they're claiming the good will be with this bill. I extensively read into it, and personal opinion, I don't see any good in it, none whatsoever. Anyway, both the House and Senate bills make some smart tax cuts and revenue increases. Most of the good tax policy aligns with Tax Foundation's principle of stability. The Senate bill makes permanent the House bill's provisions, allowing expensing for investment in short-lived assets and domestic research and development. Permanent expensing has the most bang for the buck when it comes to economic growth. In the context of the full Senate bill, the two provisions boost long-run GDP by 0.7% by providing taxpayers the certainty they need to boost long-run investments. The Senate retains the House bill's temporary expensing for qualified structures, a good addition that would need to be made permanent for long-run economic growth. The Senate bill also makes permanent TCJA's less restrictive limitation on interest deductions. Both bills provide a permanently higher threshold for expensing certain equipment for smaller businesses. See Section 179 expensing. The House and Senate bills both secure permanent extensions of the rates and brackets of the 2017 individual tax cuts, providing certainty for households and stability to the structure of the tax code. The Senate bill also permanently extends a larger standard deduction and a modified alternative minimum tax threshold. Both bills permanently extend some of the TCJA's limits on some itemized deductions, such as mortgage interest, and limit the value of itemized deductions for top earners. The standard deduction and limitations on itemized deductions have greatly simplified the tax code for millions of taxpayers. The Senate does slightly better than the House on the SALT Act. Initially, the Senate
Finance draft retained the $10,000 cap on the state and local tax SALT deduction. However, the final Senate version raises the SALT cap to $40,000, adjusted by 1% annually, for taxpayers earning less than $500,000 from 2025 to 2029, before reverting to the $10,000 cap permanently afterwards. This approach is still preferable to the House bill, which makes the $40,000 SALT cap for taxpayers earning less than $500,000 permanent. Regarding the estate and gift tax, the bills institute a permanent and inflation-adjusted exemption level of $15 million beginning in 2026. The bills establish permanent through different solutions for the treatment of international business income, removing the threat of sustainability higher taxes at the end of this year for U.S.-based multinational companies, while the House permanently extends a slightly less generous version of current policy for the international regimen, GILTI, FDII, and BEAT. The Senate introduces permanent reforms with new acronyms that increase tax rates but reduce double taxation. Both bills also raise revenue relative to current law by reducing some of the tax code's many tax credits, deductions, and other preferences. The largest area of reform is the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA. Green energy tax credits. Both bills raise about $500 billion over a decade, reducing the cost of the green energy credits by about half. Several IRA credits are repealed. As for electrical vehicles, EVs, and residential energy products, which are expensive and ineffective, while most others are restricted or phased out quicker. However, the Senate bill expands the carbon dioxide sequestration credit and extends the clean fuel product tax credit, while introducing additional compliance challenges for many credits. Health insurance premium tax credits, projected to cost about $1 trillion over the next decade, are pared about 20% by tightening eligibility rules and reducing improper payments. The bills also tighten some tax-exempt rules, such as for unrelated business income. So, that's supposed to be the good.
To me, even though it sounds great, it sounds like a bunch of hoopla, but we'll see how, all the money goes towards everything that is being taken away from all of us right now. So now that we're done talking about the good, let's talk about the bad.
The bad. The bills spend far too much money on political gimmicks and carve-outs. I agree. They both introduce tax exemptions for overtime pay and tips, a deduction for auto loan interest, and an additional standard deduction available for some seniors, all of which violate basic tax principles of treating taxpayers equally. Combined, the four provisions cost more than $350 billion over the 4 years they are in effect in the Senate version, and the cost would more than double if they are made permanent. Complicated eligibility restrictions for some new deductions reduce the cost somewhat, but it would be better to not introduce the bad ideas in the first place. Lawmakers have also made a costly mistake on the treatment of non-corporate businesses. In 2017, lawmakers introduced a 20% deduction for a business income that is taxed on the individual rate schedule and not at the corporate tax rate of 21%. The taxes on dividends and capital gains are a second layer of tax on corporate income. The non-corporate businesses, also known as pass-throughs, face a few changes in the legislation, but the main change in the deduction is made permanent at 20% in the Senate version and increased to 23% by the House.
They're just taking all of our money. If you're not rich, if you don't make a lot of money, you're screwed. Let's get into the ugly now.
The bills further complicate the tax code in several ways, sending taxpayers through a maze of new rules and compliance costs that in many cases likely outweigh potential tax benefits. No tax on tips, overtime, and car loans come with various conditions and guardrails that, if enacted, will likely require hundreds of pages of IRS guidance to interpret. The changes to the IRA credits will, while commendable in many ways, keep in place of the most complicated rules. For example, bonus credits for meeting prevailing wage and accepted parentship requirements and new foreign entity of concern restrictions that may make many of the credits cost prohibitive. While the bills provide new incentives for saving, the accounts are redundant and the rules complex. The tax code is already littered with a confusing array of special preferences for savers, including tax-preferred accounts for education, health, retirement, and other purposes that go largely unused by low- and middle-income households. Rather than simplifying and liberalizing the rules to allow saving for any purposes without penalty, universal savings accounts, both bills expand savings accounts for higher education, 529 accounts, and for individuals with disabilities, able accounts, drawing new lines for eligible expenses and contribution levels. The Senate bill initially left the House's expansions of health savings, HSAs, out, but partially added them back in the final version. The bill is introducing a new savings vehicle called Trump accounts, an entirely new type of incentive that includes a $1,000 government-provided baby bonus for children born in the next 40 years. The accounts allow taxpayer contributions up to $5,000 a year that can grow tax-free until the beneficiary withdraws the money at age 18 or older, at which point the withdrawal is subject to capital gains tax if used for a few qualified expenses or otherwise ordinary income tax, plus a 10% penalty. Various other conditions apply. Trump accounts provide a more limited and restricted tax benefit than existing saving incentives, such as 529 accounts. The bills also allow certain tax-exempt entities to contribute to Trump accounts. The major effect is to introduce a new baby bonus entitlement that requires taxpayers to track yet another small dollar account for 18 plus years. This is a missed opportunity to simplify saving and improving financial security for all Americans. The bill established a new tax credit for donations to scholarship-granting organizations, which may be intended to work in tandem with Trump accounts. The Senate makes the credit permanent, but shrinks to $1,700 instead. $17,000 instead of the greater of $5,000 or 10% of adjusted gross income. While helpful for some, the tax credit would undoubtedly require a lot of rulemaking and administration by the Treasury Department and the IRS, which is already overwhelmed with tax administrating our complicated tax code and multiple benefit programs under law.
So basically, One, not only are we getting punished for not having children, we're being bribed to have children in order to have money, is what I'm understanding. Considering it's called the baby bonus. Not to mention that a lot of women are gonna die because a lot of women can't be pregnant. Like, I'm one of those women. I'm diabetic. I have POTS disease. I suffer from migraines. So, like, pregnancy is not really something I want. And I don't want kids anyway. They're a lot. They can be annoying. And they're expensive. And, you know, I'm 25, about to be 26. And, kids just aren't in the picture. I would rather have animals. Anyway, the big picture
of the Big Beautiful Bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act provides certainty for U.S. households by permanently extending the TCJA individual rates and brackets and makes permanent one of the most pro-growth tax policies available, expensing for investment in short-lived assets and domestic research and development. However, it focuses too heavily on political carve-outs like the no tax on tips and overtime exemptions and misses a critical opportunity to address the deficit and simply the code. So that
is pretty much like the rundown, the good, bad, like what's gonna happen and what the government is working on doing to everything that we know and love is just, you know, being destroyed. Alright, so I have another website, BBC, and it basically it goes over what's in the bill and what's gonna be cut. So I'm going to go ahead and read that to you. What are the key items in Trump's sprawling budget bill? The U.S. President Donald Trump's budget mega bill is set to become law after it passed a final vote in the House of Representatives. The president is now poised to sign the bill into law during a ceremony on Friday. So this is going over events that have already happened, but it includes what's going to be happening. Anyway, its advancement has not been easy. The legislation has stoked disputes among lawmakers from Trump's own Republican Party, who control both chambers of the Congress and over social programs and spending levels. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the bill could add 3.3 TN to federal deficits over the next 10 years and leave millions without health coverage, a forecast that the White House disputes. During a vote in the U.S. Senate earlier this week, Vice President J.D. Vance was forced to cast the tie-breaking vote in order to pass the bill. The legislation's prospects in the House appeared precarious. However, Republican rebels eventually got on board to support it following hours of wrangling on Thursday. Here is a look to some of the key items and hotly debated issues in the bill. So, it's a lot of reading. So I'm just going to read like the first line in each thing. So feel free to pause the video to read everything that shows up on the screen. Alright, so extension of 2017 Trump tax cuts. During his first term, Trump had signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which lowered taxes for corporations and for individuals across most income brackets. Trump had touted the law as one that would stimulate economic growth, but experts have argued that it has benefited wealthy Americans the most. Key provisions of that law are set to expire in December, but the sprawling budget bill currently before lawmakers aim to make those tax cuts permanent. It also increases standard deductions by $1,000 or £736 for individuals and $2,000 for married couples until 2028. Alright, so this one's kind of long, so I'm literally only going to read the first paragraph. But steep cuts to Medicaid, which is my insurance. insulin is expensive. It is $200 a bottle, and it has went up to $400. So without insurance, for 4 bottles of insulin, that's $890. Yeah, can't afford that without Medicaid. So, yeah, you catch my drift here. Anyway, steep cuts to Medicaid. To help finance tax cuts elsewhere, Republicans have added additional restrictions to Medicaid, the healthcare program relied upon by millions. I'm going to repeat that. Millions of disabled and low-income Americans. And, yeah. So, being disabled only gets worse. So, yeah, my disability, by law, will no longer be covered by insurance because the government low-key, high-key sucks. Anyway, Social Security taxes. So if you have Social Security, you are no longer going to be able to get every single penny that's on that check. I'll read this full one because it's short. On the campaign trail, Trump vowed to eliminate taxes on Social Security income, monthly payments to Americans of retirement age, and people with disabilities. The House bill fell short of delivering on that promise, but it did temporarily increase the standard deduction up to $4,000 for individuals 65 and older. That deduction would be in place from 2025 to 28. Senate Republicans approved an extension of Social Security tax breaks and an increase that would grant $6,000 tax deduction for older Americans who earn no more than $75,000 a year. And then you have your increasing state and local tax deduction, which is SALT. This one's short, so I'll go ahead and read it to you. This bill increases the deduction limit for state and local taxes. There is currently a $10,000 cap on how much taxpayers can deduct from the amount they owe in federal taxes. That expires this year. The Senate approved bill raises from $10,000 to $40,000, but after 5 years it would return to $10,000. SALT taxes were a big sticking point in the House, especially Republican holdouts, in some Democratic-controlled urban areas. The House's version of the spending bill did not include a 5-year limit, so the Senate's changes would pose a problem for some House Republicans. And then you have your cuts to food benefits. So reforms have also been added to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, which is also used by over 40 million low-income Americans. The Senate bill requires that states to contribute to the program, which is currently fully funded by the federal government. The government would continue to fully fund the benefits for states that have an error payment rate below 6%, but the states with higher error rates would be on the hook for anywhere from 5% to 15% of the program's cost. That change will start in 2028. The Senate bills also adds work requirements for able-bodied SNAP enrollees who do not have dependents. And then you have your boost to defense and border spending. And then you have your clean energy incentives reduction. This one is short, but I'm just going to read the first sentence. One of the most notable divisions between House and Senate Republicans is the Senate's proposal for clean energy tax breaks. You know what? Actually, no, I'm going to read a little bit more of this one for you because this one has a lot of percentages and I think it's really important to know. Although both call for an end to the Biden-era federal clean energy tax credits, Senate Republicans approved phasing them out more slowly. For instance, the Senate has extended the runway for businesses that build wind and solar farms to still benefit from the tax credits. However, both the House and Senate versions seek to deny the credits to companies whose supply claims may have ties to a foreign entity of concern, such as China. Always worried about China. Like, bro. chill out. Anyway, companies that begin construction this year could qualify for the full tax break. That drops to 60% if they begin construction in 2026 and 20% if they begin in 2027. The credit would disappear in 2028. The House version of the bill sought to end the tax break for those companies almost immediately. And then I'm just going to show you a couple of graphs that shows you all the percentages and how much money is going to be used and spent and all of that fun stuff. So what happens next? What happens next is, now that the bill has passed the House, its next stop is the president's desk to be officially signed to law, which it has. It's already been passed. The White House says the President Trump will sign it at a ceremony on July 4th, 1700 EDT, 22 BTS. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reacted to the bill's passing with a one-word message on social media: victory, she said, alongside an American flag image. So basically, our rights and our health care and the way we get our food is slowly being stripped away. And what a funny day to do it, on the day we're supposed to be celebrating freedom, America's independence. Like, how can you be okay with taking people's health care? And how can you be okay with forcing people, not only forcing people, but bribing people to have babies when they don't want to have babies? Like, I'm not going to listen to a man who's the color of an orange and another man who wears more eyeliner than I do. Like, we're supposed to be, you know, making things better, but instead we're regressing. We're going backwards. And everybody thinks that we're going forward, and we're not. And if you don't actually, like, read the news and care, you're not going to see that. But we have already went over who's going to be better, who's going to be worse. I did get curious. I looked it up. Is there anyone trying to reverse the Big Beautiful Bill? And there is. There are efforts to reverse aspects of the One Big Beautiful Bill, officially known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, passed by Congress. Several groups, including Democrats and some Republicans, are actively working to counter its provisions and potentially repel or modify its effects. So that was just a random Google search. I don't have a link to that. I'll even show you right here, because, you know, we got fact checkers out there and whatever, but here you go. That's that. So, and my opinions on the bill, even though I've addressed them throughout the entire video, I don't understand how the government is okay with passing a bill that is going to hurt a lot of people. You know, it's crazy. And let's be honest here, the government has never been one for the people. And, you know, it's supposed to be justice for all. And I guess all only pertains to rich people, rich white people that are men, rich white people that are men that have children, rich white people that are men that have children that have nothing wrong with them. So, there's that. So if you're anything other than that, the government doesn't like you. And I don't know why people can't get that through their heads. You know, we've been dealing with this since the dawn of time. And I am a person that loves history, and I like to keep up to date on things because, you know, I am a woman who has diabetes and other medical needs that I don't really talk about because my diabetes and my POTS are like the biggest things that I need to take care of every single day. So, yeah. And then my fiance, he has scoliosis, so there's that. What a wonderful time to turn 26 and own a house and be getting married. So, if you like what I said here, despite the fact that I was a little camera shy, because I haven't done this in a long time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, And stay tuned for more videos. I think I will cover the Epstein files in my next video because President Trump, you can say you weren't there and such, but there's a video. Check back with this video to hear that. I don't mind talking trash about the government, so yeah. But yeah, so me and my trusty notebook, we are going to gather more research, more information, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!